I didn't choose this. The heavy weight of the wedding ring on my finger felt like a shackle, a cold reminder of the life I had just been forced into. Killian Valenti stood beside me, his grip on my waist firm but impersonal, his face carved from stone. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at me. This wasn't a love story. This was a war. A deal made in blood and revenge. Killian was my father's worst enemy. A man whose name was whispered in fear, whose mere presence sent shivers down spines. My father had done the one thing you should never do to a man like him. He betrayed him. And in return, Killian took his most prized possession. Me. I was the price my father paid to save his empire. A daughter handed over like a business transaction, my freedom ripped away in exchange for peace. But standing there in that cold, extravagant ballroom, I knew the truth. Killian Valenti didn't want a wife. He wanted a pawn. And I was just the unfortunate woman who had to wear the title. The mansion was suffocating. It was too big, too cold, too empty. Just like my husband. I sat at the edge of the bed on our wedding night, fingers trembling as I watched him loosen his tie, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to look so scared," he murmured, smirking as he unbuttoned the top of his shirt. "I'm not going to touch you." I swallowed hard. "Then why marry me?" His eyes darkened, stepping closer. "Because taking you means taking everything from your father." I flinched at the venom in his voice. That was all I was to him. A weapon. A tool for revenge. "Then what happens now?" I whispered. Killian tilted his head, watching me like he was considering something. And then he chuckled, the sound low and cold. "Now, you play the role of the obedient wife, kitten." His voice dropped. "And if you even think about running, I will find you." A shiver ran down my spine. I didn't doubt him. Not for a second. I never expected him to care. Not about me. Not about who I talked to. But I was wrong. It happened at a gala, one of those suffocating events filled with men who thrived on power and women who smiled through the weight of their jewelry. Killian had left me alone, again. He never treated me like a wife, so I had no reason to stay glued to his side. That's when I met Adrian. He was charming in a casual way, not like the men I was used to. He wasn't looking at me like I was an asset, a pawn. He just smiled and asked, "Are you okay?" I barely got the chance to respond. Because the second I opened my mouth, the air shifted. A chill ran down my spine, and I knew. I didn't need to turn around to feel his presence. But I did. And when I did, Killian stood there, his expression unreadable, his jaw tight. Adrian noticed the shift too. His smile faltered, his eyes flickering between us. I was just leaving. Killian's voice was calm. Too calm. Adrian hesitated, looking at me as if asking if I was okay. I opened my mouth, but before I could say a word, Killian took a step forward. His presence alone was a warning. His lips curled into something that wasn't a smile. "Unless you want to lose the ability to use your hands, I suggest you walk away." Adrian paled. He muttered something under his breath and left without another glance. I turned to Killian, anger burning in my chest. "You can't just threaten people." I snapped. His eyes were on me now, dark and burning. He stepped closer, and I stepped back until my back hit the wall. "You think this is a game?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You think I'll let you stand here, smiling at another man?" I scoffed. "This is a marriage of convenience, Killian. Why does it matter who I talk to?" His nostrils flared, his jaw clenching. "You really don't get it, do you?" His fingers brushed my cheek, deceptively gentle. "It doesn't matter how we started, kitten." His grip tightened, his thumb pressing against my pulse. "You belong to me now." My breath hitched. His lips brushed against my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. "And if I ever see you looking at another man again, I'll make sure you never have the chance to do it again." I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering beneath his touch. He wasn't bluffing. Killian Valenti never bluffed. And that terrified me more than anything. Because deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted him to stop. I don't know when it changed. Maybe it was the way I never fought him the way he expected. Maybe it was the way I stood my ground. Maybe it was the quiet moments, the times I caught him watching me when he thought I wouldn't notice. But something between us shifted. Killian started coming home earlier. Started eating dinner with me instead of locking himself away in his office. And then one night, I caught him watching me in a way he never had before. Like he wanted me. Like he was starting to regret the way he had treated me. I pretended not to notice. But I felt it. And I knew that for a man like him, wanting something meant owning it. Completely. It happened during an argument. A storm raged outside, lightning flashing through the windows, but the real storm was inside. Between us. You act like you hate me, but you can't even stand the idea of me leaving, I snapped, my voice shaking. Killian's jaw clenched, his hands fisted at his sides. You think I don't want to let you go? His voice was raw. Rough. You think I don't know this was a mistake? My breath hitched. Because I saw it then. The war in his eyes. The truth he had been fighting. I shook my head. Then why won't you let me go? He exhaled sharply. And then. He was in front of me. His hands cupped my face, his grip almost painful. Because I can't. His voice was a whisper now, his forehead resting against mine. Because I don't want to. My heart stopped. And then. He kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. Starved. Like he had been holding himself back for too long. Like he was done pretending. After that night, Killian was different. More intense. More possessive. If I so much as looked at another man, his arm was around my waist, his grip bruising. If I smiled at someone, his lips were at my ear, whispering, "Remember who you belong to." I used to think I was a prisoner in this marriage. But now? Now, I was something else entirely. His. One night, as I lay in bed beside him, I whispered, "Did you ever plan to love me?" Killian was silent for a long time. And then, in the darkness, he murmured, "No." My stomach twisted. "But then you ruined everything." His fingers brushed my cheek. Because now, I don't know how to stop. I looked into his eyes, eyes that were once so cold. And I knew the truth. I was never meant to be his weakness. But somehow, I became his downfall. And the worst part? I wouldn't have it any other way. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe.